A young woman, glowing with the joy of her first pregnancy, suddenly finds her world shattered when the man she loves walks out the door forever. Years pass, and her little girl grows into a fierce CEO, ready to face the father who abandoned them. But just when revenge seems sweet, a shocking twist changes everything. You won't believe what happens next. If you love heart-pounding stories of betrayal, triumph, and unexpected turns, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's dive into the tale. It was a rainy evening in a small apartment in Chicago, the kind of night where the world outside felt as cold and unforgiving as the news about to hit. Sarah, just 25 years old, sat on the edge of her bed, her hand gently resting on her growing belly. She was 3 months pregnant, and the excitement had been bubbling inside her like a warm fire. Her husband, Mark, had been her high school sweetheart, tall, charming, with a smile that could light up any room. They had dreamed of this baby together, picking out names and imagining family picnics in the park. But that night, Mark came home late, his face pale and distant. He didn't kiss her hello like he usually did. Instead, he paced the tiny living room, avoiding her eyes. "Sarah," he finally said, his voice cracking just a bit. "I can't do this anymore. The baby, the responsibility, it's too much. I'm leaving." Her heart stopped. She stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for him to laugh and say it was a bad joke. But he didn't. He grabbed a suitcase from the closet, the one they had used for their honeymoon just 2 years ago, and started stuffing clothes into it. "What do you mean, leaving?" she whispered, tears welling up. "We're having a baby, Mark. Our baby." He paused, looking at her with eyes full of regret, or was it guilt? "I know, but I just can't. I'm sorry." And with that, he walked out the door, the rain swallowing his footsteps as he disappeared into the night. Sarah collapsed onto the floor, sobbing, her world crumbling around her. How could he do this? They had vowed for better or worse, but now she was alone, with a child on the way and no idea how to survive. The days that followed were a blur of pain and fear. Sarah's family lived far away, and her friends were young and busy with their own lives. She had to quit her part-time job at the coffee shop because the morning sickness was too much, and the bills started piling up like unwanted guests. She spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if Mark would come back, if it was all a mistake. But he didn't call, didn't write. It was as if he had vanished from the earth. When her daughter Emily was born 6 months later, Sarah held that tiny bundle in her arms and promised herself and her baby that they would make it, no matter what. The hospital room was quiet except for Emily's soft cries, and Sarah whispered, "It's just you and me, kiddo. We'll show him." But deep down, the abandonment gnawed at her, a wound that wouldn't heal. What kind of man leaves his pregnant wife? And what secrets might he be hiding that made him run? As the years ticked by, Sarah threw herself into survival mode. She worked 2 jobs, days at a diner flipping burgers, nights cleaning offices downtown. Her hands grew rough from scrubbing, her back ached from standing, but she never complained. Emily became her reason for everything. Mornings were rushed, getting Emily ready for daycare, then rushing to work. Evenings were for homework help and bedtime stories, even when Sarah was bone tired. There were tough times, like when the electricity got shut off because she couldn't pay the bill on time, or when Emily asked why she didn't have a daddy like the other kids at school. "He had to go away for work," Sarah would lie, forcing a smile. But inside, the anger simmered. She taught Emily to be strong, to dream big. "You can be anything, sweetie," she'd say, chucking her in. "Don't let anyone hold you back." Little did Sarah know those words would plant seeds that would grow into something powerful and vengeful. Emily was a bright spark from the start. By age 10, she was winning science fairs and reading books way above her grade level. Sarah scraped together money for after-school programs, skipping meals herself if needed. "Mom, why do you work so much?" Emily once asked, her big eyes full of worry. Sarah hugged her tight. "So you can have a better life than I did." But as Emily grew, questions about her father bubbled up more often. Sarah dodged them, changing the subject, but the curiosity in her eyes grew sharper. What if she found out the truth? And what if that truth led her straight to him? Flash forward to today. Emily, now 28 years old, stands at the helm of her own tech company, a powerhouse in Silicon Valley. She's built an empire from nothing, her name on billboards and in magazines. CEOs twice her age seek her advice, and her net worth is in the millions. But success hasn't erased the hole in her heart. Late at night, in her sleek penthouse, she thinks about the man who left, her father. She's hired private investigators, pieced together clues. She knows where he is now, living a quiet life in a suburb, perhaps with regrets of his own. The years rolled on like pages in a book Sarah wished she could rewrite. Emily grew from that tiny, crying baby into a determined little girl with her mother's stubborn chin and eyes that missed nothing. By the time Emily was in middle school, she already understood more about money than most adults. She saw how her mom counted every penny at the grocery store, how Sarah sometimes skipped dinner so Emily could have seconds of mac and cheese. Those quiet moments planted something deep inside Emily, a fire that said, "Never again will we be this helpless." Sarah kept working the diner by day and the office cleaning crew by night. Her feet hurt constantly, her knees swelled after long shifts, but she smiled through it all for Emily. "Education is your ticket out, baby girl," she'd say while braiding Emily's hair before bed. "Get good grades, go to college, build something nobody can take away." Emily listened. She studied late into the night under a cheap desk lamp, her backpack stuffed with library books because they couldn't afford new ones. When other kids went to summer camp, Emily stayed home and taught herself coding from free online videos on their secondhand laptop that overheated every 20 minutes. There were hard days, really hard ones. The winter Emily was 12, the landlord raised the rent and Sarah had to choose between heat and groceries. They bundled up in blankets and wore socks to bed for weeks. Emily never complained, but she started a small side hustle selling handmade bracelets at school. She saved every dollar and a coffee can under her bed labeled college fund. When Sarah found it one day while cleaning, she sat on the floor and cried silent tears. That was the moment she knew her daughter was different, not just smart, but fierce. High school flew by in a blur of honor roll certificates, scholarship applications, and part-time jobs at the mall. Emily graduated valedictorian, her speech simple but powerful. "My mom taught me that strength isn't loud, it's showing up every single day, even when your heart is broken and your body is tired. This degree is for her." Sarah sat in the audience wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her best and only nice dress. She had never felt prouder. College came next. Emily earned a full ride to Stanford thanks to scholarships, grants, and sheer grit. She majored in computer science, minored in business, and interned at every tech company that would take her. She slept 4 hours a night some semesters, fueled by coffee and the memory of her mom scrubbing floors at 2 a.m. By senior year, she had already built a small app that helped small businesses manage inventory. A venture capitalist saw it at a demo day, invested $500,000, and just like that, Emily's company, called Rise Tech, was born. The rise was fast and dizzying. Rise Tech grew from a dorm room idea into a platform used by thousands of companies. She hired her first employees, moved into real office space, appeared on business podcasts. Magazines called her the next big thing, a self-made millionaire under 30. She bought her mom a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing flashy, just safe and warm, with a garden Sarah could tend without worrying about rent. Every time Sarah walked into that kitchen and saw the new fridge that actually kept food cold, she thanked God and hugged Emily so tight it hurt. But even with the success, the old wound never fully closed. Emily kept a single photo of Mark, the one from their wedding album Sarah couldn't bring herself to throw away. She looked at it sometimes late at night, tracing the smile that used to make her mom laugh. "Why did you leave us?" she whispered to the picture. The question turned into fuel. She started digging quietly, a private investigator here, public records there. She learned Mark had moved to a mid-sized town in Ohio, remarried, had 2 more kids. He worked a steady job at an insurance company. Normal life, happy family, the kind Sarah and Emily never got. The anger that had simmered for so long finally boiled over. Emily wasn't the scared little girl asking, "Where's Daddy?" anymore. She was a woman with power, money, and a long memory. She told her assistant one morning, "Find out where Mark Thompson lives now, set up a meeting, tell him it's a business opportunity he can't refuse." Her voice was calm, but her hands shook as she said his name out loud for the first time in years. Sarah didn't know about the plan. Emily hadn't told her, not yet. She wanted to protect her mom from more pain, but deep down, Emily also wanted to see the look on his face when he realized who she had become. The daughter he threw away was now someone who could buy and sell companies like the one he worked for. She pictured the moment, him confused, then shocked, then maybe ashamed. She wanted him to feel 1/10 of the hurt he caused. The meeting was set for next month in a fancy hotel conference room in Ohio, neutral ground. Emily's team prepared everything, financial projections, a sleek presentation folder, but this wasn't just business, this was personal, very personal. As the date got closer, Emily felt the storm building inside her chest. What would she say first? Would she scream, cry, or stay ice cold and watch him squirm? And what if he apologized? What if he had a good reason? Or what if he didn't? The questions kept her awake at night. But there was something else Emily hadn't uncovered yet, something buried deeper in the records, something that would turn this confrontation upside down, a secret Mark had kept for almost 30 years, a truth so big it could rewrite everything Emily thought she knew about her own life. The day of the meeting is almost here. Emily steps into the elevator, heart pounding, ready to face the man who broke her mother's heart. She thinks this is the moment of revenge she's waited for her whole life. But then, the hotel conference room smelled faintly of fresh coffee and polished wood. Emily arrived 20 minutes early, dressed in the sharp black blazer over a cream silk blouse, her hair pulled back in a low, sleek ponytail. She looked every inch the CEO she had become, calm on the outside, a hurricane inside. Her assistant, Mia, waited by the door with a leather portfolio and a tablet, ready to hand over documents at a moment's notice. Emily didn't need notes. Every word she planned to say had been rehearsed in her head for years. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened. Mark Thompson walked in. He was older now, gray streaking his once dark hair, lines around his eyes and mouth that hadn't been there in the old wedding photo. He wore a plain gray suit that looked slightly too big, like he'd lost weight or stopped caring about appearances. For a split second, Emily's breath caught. This was the man who used to carry her mom on his back around the apartment when she was pregnant and her feet swelled. This was the man who promised forever, and then vanished. Mark stopped when he saw her. His eyes widened, confusion flickering across his face. "Emily," he said quietly, almost like he wasn't sure it was real. You're all grown up." She didn't smile. "Sit down, Mr. Thompson." He hesitated, then pulled out the chair across the long glass table and sat, his hands folded on the surface, fingers laced tight. He looked nervous. Good, Emily thought. He should. "I got your assistant's call, something about a business opportunity. I didn't know it would be you." Emily leaned forward slightly. "You didn't know it would be me because you never bothered to find out what happened to us after you left, but I know everything about you now. New wife, 2 kids, nice house in the suburbs, steady job. You built a whole new life while my mom raised me alone on minimum wage and night shifts." Mark's face flushed. He looked down at his hands. "I was young, scared. I wasn't ready to be a father. I thought you'd both be better off without me dragging you down." Emily let out a short, bitter laugh. "Better off? We lost the apartment twice. We ate ramen for weeks when the rent was late. My mom cried herself to sleep so many nights I lost count. And you were out here starting over like none of it happened." "I'm sorry," he whispered. The words sounded small in the big room. "I've thought about you both every day. I wanted to reach out so many times, but I was ashamed. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me." Emily opened the portfolio and slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was a simple, 1-page offer. RiseTech was acquiring a small regional insurance software company, Mark's employer, for 3 times its current valuation. But there was a condition, handwritten in red ink. You sell, you walk away with a generous severance, and you never contact me or my mother again, ever. Mark stared at the paper like it might bite him.
You're buying my company to hurt me? No, Emily said coldly. I'm buying it because it's a smart business move. Hurting you is just a bonus. Silence stretched between them. Mark's shoulders slumped. I deserve that, he said finally. I know I do. But Emily, there's something you need to know, something your mom never told you. Emily's eyes narrowed. Don't try to play the victim card now. It's not that. He reached into his jacket pocket slowly, pulled out an old folded envelope yellowed at the edges. He placed it on the table between them. This is from the hospital, the day you were born. Emily didn't touch it. What is it? A paternity test, Mark said, voice barely above a whisper. I had it done right after you were born. I wasn't sure you were mine. The room seemed to tilt. Emily felt the air leave her lungs. What? I was stupid, paranoid. Your mom and I had a rough patch right before she got pregnant. I thought maybe someone else. I paid for the test in secret. The results came back. You're not biologically mine. Emily stared at the envelope like it was poison. Her mind raced, replaying every memory, every story her mom had told her. Sarah had...
Emily stepped out of the hotel into the crisp Ohio afternoon, the envelope clutched in her hand like it was burning her skin. The city noise felt distant, cars honking, people laughing on the sidewalk, as if the whole world had slowed down just to watch her unravel. She hailed a cab, slid into the back seat, and gave the driver the address of the small airport hotel where she was staying overnight. She needed to get back to her mom. She needed answers. The flight home was a blur. Emily stared out the window at the clouds, the paternity test envelope unopened in her lap. She couldn't bring herself to look at it yet. Every time she thought about tearing it open, her stomach twisted. What if Mark was telling the truth? What if Sarah had known all along? What if the man Emily had hated for 28 years wasn't even her biological father? She landed just after sunset. The drive from the airport to her mother's quiet house felt endless. Streetlights flickered past, and Emily rehearsed what she would say. She didn't want to hurt Sarah, she just wanted the truth. Sarah was in the kitchen when Emily walked in, apron tied around her waist, stirring a pot of vegetable soup. The house smelled like home. Warm bread, herbs, safety. Sarah turned, smiled big, then froze when she saw Emily's face. Sweetie, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Emily set her bag down slowly. Mom, I need to talk to you. About Dad, about Mark. Sarah's smile faded. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and sat at the small kitchen table. Sit down, baby. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Emily pulled out the chair and sat. She placed the yellowed envelope between them. He gave me this today. He said it's a paternity test from the day I was born. He said I'm not his. Sarah's eyes locked on the envelope. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, very quietly, she reached out and touched it with one finger, like she was afraid it might disappear. You knew? Emily whispered. Sarah took a shaky breath. I suspected, but I never got proof. I never wanted proof. Emily felt tears sting her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because it didn't matter. Sarah's voice was soft but steady. The day you were born, I looked at your tiny face and I knew you were mine. No test could change that. Mark, he started acting strange toward the end of the pregnancy, distant, suspicious. He asked questions about where I'd been, who I'd seen. I thought it was just nerves. Then one night he came home drunk and accused me of cheating. I swore I hadn't. I loved him, only him. Sarah paused, eyes far away. After you were born, he got worse. He wouldn't hold you. He barely looked at you. Then he left. I found the test results in his coat pocket the day he walked out. I read them. Negative. I cried for days. But I never told anyone, not even you, because to me, you were his daughter in every way that counted until he chose not to be. Emily's throat tightened. So he left because he thought I wasn't his, and you let him believe it? You let him walk away without fighting? I fought for you every single day after that, Sarah said firmly. I didn't fight for him because he didn't want to stay. I wasn't going to beg a man to love us when he'd already decided we weren't worth it. Emily opened the envelope with trembling fingers. She pulled out the single sheet of paper, old lab results, black ink faded but still clear. The conclusion stared back at her. Probability of paternity, 0%. Not excluded as biological father, no. She set it down. He said he still loved me even after the test, but he couldn't handle the doubt. Sarah reached across the table and took Emily's hand. He was weak, Emily. That's all it was. Weakness, not you. Never you. They sat in silence for a while, the soup bubbling softly on the stove. Then Emily spoke, voice small. I was going to destroy him today. I had the deal ready. Buy his company, force him out, make him feel small. But now I don't know what to feel. Sarah squeezed her hand. You don't have to feel anything right now. You've carried enough anger for both of us. Maybe it's time to let some of it go. Emily nodded slowly, but there was still one piece missing, one question that kept circling in her mind. Mom, if Mark isn't my father, then who is? Sarah looked down at their joined hands. I don't know for sure. There was only one other possibility. One night, months before I found out I was pregnant, a coworker. We were both lonely. It happened once. I regretted it immediately. When I realized I was pregnant, I convinced myself it was Mark's. I wanted it to be his. I loved him, only him. Sarah paused, eyes far away. After you were born, he got worse. He wouldn't hold you. He barely looked at you. Then he left. I found the test results in his coat pocket the day he walked out. I read them. Negative. I cried for days. But I never told anyone, not even you, because to me, you were his daughter in every way that counted, until he chose not to be. Emily's throat tightened. So he left because he thought I wasn't his, and you let him believe it? You let him walk away without fighting? I fought for you every single day after that, Sarah said firmly. I didn't fight for him because he didn't want to stay. I wasn't going to beg a man to love us when he'd already decided we weren't worth it. Emily opened the envelope with trembling fingers. She pulled out the single sheet of paper, old lab results, black ink faded but still clear. The conclusions stared back at her. Probability of paternity, 0%. Not excluded as biological father, no. She set it down. He said he still loved me, even after the test, but he couldn't handle the doubt. Sarah reached across the table and took Emily's hand. He was weak, Emily. That's all it was. Weakness, not you. Never you. They sat in silence for a while, the soup bubbling softly on the stove. Then Emily spoke, voice small. I was going to destroy him today. I had the deal ready. Buy his company, force him out, make him feel small. But now I don't know what to feel. Sarah squeezed her hand. You don't have to feel anything right now. You've carried enough anger for both of us. Maybe it's time to let some of it go. Emily nodded slowly, but there was still one piece missing, one question that kept circling in her mind. Mom, if Mark isn't my father, then who is? Sarah looked down at their joined hands. I don't know for sure. There was only one other possibility. One night, months before I found out I was pregnant, a coworker. We were both lonely. It happened once. I regretted it immediately. When I realized I was pregnant, I convinced myself it was Mark's. I wanted it to be his. I loved him, only him. Sarah paused, eyes far away. After you were born, he got worse. He wouldn't hold you. He barely looked at you. Then he left. I found the test results in his coat pocket the day he walked out. I read them. Negative. I cried for days. But I never told anyone, not even you, because to me, you were his daughter in every way that counted until he chose not to be. Emily's throat tightened. So he left because he thought I wasn't his, and you let him believe it? You let him walk away without fighting? I thought for you every single day after that, Sarah said firmly. I didn't fight for him because he didn't want to stay. I wasn't going to beg a man to love us when he'd already decided we weren't worth it. Emily opened the envelope with trembling fingers. She pulled out the single sheet of paper, old lab results, black ink faded but still clear. The conclusion stared back at her. Probability of paternity, 0%. Not excluded as biological father, no. She set it down. He said he still loved me, even after the test, but he couldn't handle the doubt. Sarah reached across the table and took Emily's hand. He was weak, Emily. That's all it was. Weakness, not you. Never you. They sat in silence for a while, the soup bubbling softly on the stove. Then Emily spoke, voice small. I was going to destroy him today. I had the deal ready. Buy his company, force him out, make him feel small. But now I don't know what to feel. Sarah squeezed her hand. You don't have to feel anything right now. You've carried enough anger for both of us. Maybe it's time to let some of it go. Emily nodded slowly, but there was still one piece missing, one question that kept circling in her mind. Mom, if Mark isn't my father, then who is? Sarah looked down at their joined hands. I don't know for sure. There was only one other possibility. One night, months before I found out I was pregnant, a coworker. We were both lonely. It happened once. I regretted it immediately. When I realized I was pregnant, I convinced myself it was Mark's. I wanted it to be his. I loved him, only him. Sarah paused, eyes far away. After you were born, he got worse. He wouldn't hold you. He barely looked at you. Then he left. I found the test results in his coat pocket the day he walked out. I read them. Negative. I cried for days, but I never told anyone, not even you, because to me, you were his daughter in every way that counted until he chose not to be. Emily's throat tightened. So he left because he thought I wasn't his, and you let him believe it? You let him walk away with... The Seattle skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the conference room on the 32nd floor. Emily stood with her back to the door for a moment, taking it in, the Space Needle in the distance, the gray water of Puget Sound, the quiet hum of a city that never quite slept. She had chosen this neutral, upscale venue on purpose. No home field advantage, no surprises, just business. And maybe something more. Her assistant Mia wheezed outside with coffee and a backup tablet. Emily had told no one else, not even Sarah, exactly what she was doing today. She had simply kissed her mom goodbye that morning and said, I'm tying up some loose ends, I'll call you tonight. The door opened behind her. A man stepped in, mid-50s, salt and pepper hair neatly trimmed, wire-rimmed glasses, a navy blazer over an open-collar shirt. He carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had built something solid and kept it running for years. James Carter. He stopped when he saw her. Polite smile at first, then a flicker of something. Recognition? Confusion? He tilted his head slightly. Ms. Thompson, he said, extending his hand. I'm James Carter. Thank you for meeting me. Your team was very persuasive about this partnership opportunity. Emily turned slowly. She shook his hand, firm, warm, steady, no tremble. She had practiced that. Please call me Emily, she said, and sit. We have a lot to talk about. They sat across from each other at the round table. James opened his folder first, launching into the usual pitch, growth numbers, market expansion plans, how a strategic investor like RiseTech could help scale his logistics software into something national. He was good, clear, data-driven, passionate without being pushy. Emily listened, nodding at the right moments, asking sharp questions that made him pause and rethink his answers. She could see why his company had survived 25 years in a cutthroat industry. When he finished, she leaned back. Impressive, she said. You've built something real here. No flash, just steady execution. I respect that. James smiled, relaxing a fraction. Coming from you, that means a lot. Your trajectory is remarkable. Emily let the compliment hang for a second. I didn't come here just for numbers, James. He raised an eyebrow. No? She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a single photograph, old, slightly creased. She slid it across the polished wood. It was a picture of Sarah, taken in 1997, young, laughing, hair blowing in the wind at a county fair. The same photo Sarah kept in a drawer back home. James looked at it. His face changed, slowly at first, then all at once. Color drained from his cheeks. His hand hovered over the picture, but didn't touch it. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice low. "From my mother," Emily said. "Sarah." The name landed like a stone in still water. James stared at her, really stared for the first time. He looked at her eyes, her cheekbones, the way her mouth curved when she spoke. Recognition dawned, painful and slow. You're her daughter," he whispered. Emily nodded once. "Yes." He sat back as if the chair had suddenly become too small. I didn't know. She never told me she was pregnant. It was one night. We were both hurting. I thought it ended there. I moved across the country a month later for a job. I never looked back because I didn't think there was anything to look back to." Emily watched him carefully. No anger in his voice, just shock, regret, maybe even grief. "I spent my whole life thinking Mark Thompson was my father, until 2 weeks ago. A paternity test proved he wasn't. My mom told me about you, about that one night, about how she chose to raise me alone rather than chase ghosts." James rubbed his face with both hands. When he looked up again, his eyes were wet. "I have 3 kids," he said. 2 girls and a boy. They're in high school and college now. My wife, she's the best thing that ever happened to me. But if I had known, if I had even suspected, I would have been there. I swear it." Emily believed him. The rawness in his voice wasn't rehearsed. "I'm not here to blow up your life," she said. "I'm not here to demand anything. I just needed to see you, to know who the other half of me came from, and maybe to tell you that the girl you never knew about turned out okay. More than okay." James let out a shaky laugh that was almost a sob. "More than okay? You're one of the most successful women in tech. I read about you. I just never connected the dots." Emily allowed herself a small smile. Life has a funny way of connecting dots when you least expect it. They sat in silence for a long minute. Then James spoke again. Can I ask about her? About Sarah?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "She's good. She lives in a little house I bought her. She gardens, she volunteers at the library. She still makes the best vegetable soup you've ever tasted. And she never remarried, never even dated. She said after Mark left, she didn't have room in her heart for anyone but me." James closed his eyes briefly. "I'm so sorry, for all of it." Emily leaned forward. "You don't have to apologize for what you didn't know, but if you want, you can meet her. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, if she's ready, if you're ready." He looked at her like she had handed him something fragile and priceless. "I'd like that, more than anything." Emily stood up. "I'll send over a term sheet for the investment. Fair terms, no strings. If you want the partnership, it's yours. If you don't, that's okay too." James stood as well. "Emily, thank you for finding me, for not hating me." She met his eyes so much like her own. "I don't hate you. I don't know you yet, but I'm open to changing that." They shook hands again, this time longer, warmer. As Emily walked toward the elevator, her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "How did it go, baby?" Emily smiled, thumbs flying across the screen. "Better than I expected. I'll tell you everything tonight. Love you." She stepped into the elevator, doors closing on the glittering city behind her. For the first time in her life, the past didn't feel like a weight. It felt like a door, one she could choose to walk through or leave gently closed. She had confronted the man who abandoned her mother. She had met the stranger who helped give her life. And somewhere in between, she had found peace. But then, 1 year later, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Sarah's doorbell rang. Emily was there, visiting for the weekend. She opened the door. A man stood on the porch, nervous, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. James. Sarah appeared behind Emily, froze, then smiled, the softest, saddest, most beautiful smile Emily had ever seen. "Hello, James," Sarah said. He swallowed hard. "Hello, Sarah." Emily stepped aside. Some stories don't end with revenge. Some end with forgiveness, and some just end with a second chance. The sun was dipping low over the quiet neighborhood, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. Emily stood just inside the doorway, holding her breath, watching the scene unfold like something out of a movie she never thought she'd star in. Sarah stepped forward slowly, wiping her hands on the edge of her favorite floral apron, even though they were already clean. James stayed on the porch step, bouquet trembling slightly in his grip. Neither of them spoke for what felt like forever. Then Sarah smiled, small at first, then wider, the kind of smile that carried 28 years of carrying on alone. "You brought wildflowers," she said softly. "You remembered." James let out a shaky laugh. "I remembered you liked the ones that grew along the fence behind the old apartment, the purple ones. These are close enough." Sarah reached out and took the bouquet. Their fingers brushed, just for a second, and Emily saw her mother's shoulders relax in a way they hadn't in decades. "Come in," Sarah said. "Both of you." Emily moved aside, letting James cross the threshold. He looked around the cozy living room like he was stepping into a memory. The same faded couch Sarah had bought secondhand when Emily was 5, the bookshelf crammed with paperbacks and photo albums, the small framed picture of baby Emily on the mantel. His eyes lingered there longest. Sarah set the flowers in a vase on the coffee table. "Sit, please. I just made iced tea. It's not fancy, but it's cold." They sat, Sarah and James on the couch, Emily in the armchair across from them. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was careful, gentle, like everyone was afraid to break something precious. James spoke first. "I didn't come here expecting forgiveness," he said. I needed to see you, to say I'm sorry in person, for not knowing, for not being there, for everything that happened after." Sarah looked at him steadily. "I was angry for a long time, not just at you, at Mark, at myself, at the whole mess. But anger gets heavy after a while. I got tired of carrying it." She glanced at Emily. "This one helped me put it down. She built something beautiful out of the broken pieces. And she found you. That took courage I didn't have back then." James turned to Emily. "You didn't have to reach out. You could have left the past where it was. Thank you for giving me this chance." Emily shrugged, but her voice was thick. "I spent years thinking revenge would fix everything. Turns out, knowing the truth fixed more than I expected." Sarah reached over and patted James' knee, the same gentle way she used to pat Emily's when she had a bad day at school. "So," Sarah said, lightening her tone, "tell me about your life, your wife, your kids. I want to hear the good parts." James smiled, real this time. "My wife, Lisa, she's a high school counselor. Kindest person I know. Our oldest, Mia, just started her sophomore year at UW. She wants to be a software engineer. The twins, Ethan and Lily, are juniors in high school. Loud, smart, always arguing about who gets the last slice of pizza." Sarah laughed. "Sounds like a full house." "It is, but it's good. Really good." He paused. "I never forgot you, Sarah. Not really. I just buried it. Thought it was better that way." Sarah nodded slowly. "I buried a lot too. But look at us, now. Still here, still breathing." Emily watched them talk. Awkward at first, then easier. Stories came out in pieces. Sarah telling about the time Emily won first place in the science fair with a baking soda volcano that erupted all over the gym floor. James sharing how he taught his son to ride a bike on the same trail where he used to jog when he first moved to Seattle. Laughter slipped in between the quiet moments. After an hour, Sarah stood up. "I'm going to start dinner. Nothing fancy, spaghetti and meatballs. You'll stay, James?" He looked surprised, then grateful. "If it's not too much trouble." "It's no trouble at all." Emily followed her mom into the kitchen while James stepped outside to make a quick call home, telling Lisa he'd be late, explaining in soft tones that something important had come up. Sarah pulled a pot from the cabinet. "You okay, baby?" Emily leaned against the counter. "I think so. It's weird. Good weird. Like the story finally has all the pages." Sarah turned, eyes shining. "You gave me back a piece of my heart today. I didn't know I still needed it until I saw him standing there." Emily hugged her tight. "You deserve good things, Mom. All of them." Dinner was simple and warm. They ate at the small kitchen table, 3 plates instead of 2 for the first time in decades. Conversation flowed easier now. No big declarations, no tears, just people sharing a meal, filling in the blank years with small, honest pieces. When James finally stood to leave, the sky outside was dark and starry. Sarah walked him to the door. "Drive safe," she said. He nodded. "Can I call sometime? Not every day, just to check in." Sarah smiled. "I'd like that." He looked at Emily. "And you? Can an old stranger call you too? Maybe talk business, or just talk?" Emily grinned. "You're not a stranger anymore, and yeah, the investment offer still stands. No pressure." James chuckled. "I'll think about it, but mostly I'd just like to know you." He stepped out onto the porch. Sarah watched him walk to his car, then turned back to Emily. "You know what the best part is?" Sarah whispered. "What?" "I don't feel like I'm missing anything anymore." Emily wrapped an arm around her mom's shoulders. They stood together in the open doorway until James's taillights disappeared around the corner. Later that night, after Sarah had gone to bed with a peaceful smile, Emily sat on the couch with her laptop open. She pulled up the Rise Tech dashboard. Numbers climbing, team growing, world moving forward. But tonight, success felt different. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about healing, about second chances nobody saw coming, about a mother who never gave up, a daughter who learned to forgive, and a father who finally showed up, even if it took almost 30 years. Emily closed the laptop, leaned back, and whispered to the quiet room. But then, life kept going, and it was beautiful. The months that followed felt like the gentle turning of a new season after a long, hard winter. Sarah's house, once quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old floorboards, began to fill with small, happy sounds. The phone ringing more often, laughter spilling from the kitchen during Sunday calls, the soft clink of extra coffee mugs being pulled from the cabinet. James didn't push. He called once a week at first, always on Sunday evenings, always asking permission to speak to Sarah before saying much else. Their conversations started short. Whether in Karachi, he'd looked it up after learning Emily's story had roots there too, even if she'd grown up stateside, how the garden was doing, whether the spaghetti recipe needed more garlic this time. Slowly, they grew longer, deeper. They talked about the years that had slipped away, the mistakes they both carried, and the quiet pride they now shared in the woman who had brought them back together. Emily watched from a distance at first, flying in every few months, staying for long weekends. She'd sit on the porch swing with her laptop balanced on her knees, pretending to work while really listening to her mom's voice brighten in ways it never had before. Sarah glowed, not the dramatic movie star glow of youth, but the soft, steady light of someone who had finally stopped waiting for permission to be happy. One spring afternoon, almost exactly a year after that first doorbell ring, James flew in for a longer visit. He brought his wife, Lisa. Emily met them at the airport. Lisa was shorter than she'd imagined, with warm brown eyes and a quick, genuine smile. She hugged Emily without hesitation. "I've heard so much about you, both of you. Thank you for letting us be part of this." Emily hugged her back. "Thank you for being kind enough to share him." The 4 of them drove back to Sarah's house in Emily's rental car.
No one spoke much on the ride. The silence was comfortable, full of anticipation rather than tension. When they pulled into the driveway, Sarah was waiting on the porch steps. Simple sundress, hair loose, hands clasped in front of her like she was trying not to fidget. James got out first. He walked up slowly, stopped 2 steps below her. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she answered, voice catching just a little. Lisa stepped forward next, offering her hand. "Sarah, I'm Lisa. It's an honor to finally meet you." Sarah took the hand, then pulled Lisa into a gentle hug. "You raised good kids, and you gave him a good life. Thank you." Lisa's eyes shimmered. "He's lucky to have known you first." They all went inside. Coffee was poured, stories were traded. Lisa showed Sarah photos on her phone of the twins at prom, of Mia accepting her scholarship award away, of family vacations to the coast. Sarah showed Lisa the old baby book she'd kept for Emily, page after page of first steps, first words, first lost teeth. Emily sat back and let it happen. She didn't need to steer the conversation anymore. She just watched her worlds, once so separate, finally touch without breaking. Later, when the sun had set and James and Lisa were staying at a nearby hotel, Sarah and Emily sat alone on the back porch. Crickets sang in the grass. A soft breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the neighbor's yard. Sarah spoke first. "I never thought I'd get this. A second chapter. Not like this." Emily reached over and squeezed her hand. "You deserve every page of it." "Do you ever wonder, what if Mark had stayed? What if none of this had happened the way it did?" Emily thought about it. "Sometimes, but then I look at you now, laughing more, sleeping better, planning little trips, and I think maybe the hard road was the only one that led here." Sarah nodded slowly. "I used to hate that road. Now I'm grateful for every mile. It brought me you, and somehow it brought him back too." A week later, back in her Silicon Valley office, Emily opened her email to find a message from James. Simple subject line, "Family photo?" Attached was a picture taken on Sarah's porch the last evening of the visit. All 4 of them standing together, Sarah in the middle, James on one side, Lisa on the other, Emily behind them with her arms around everyone's shoulders. Smiles. Real ones. Emily saved it to her phone, set it as her lock screen. She texted her mom. "We look good together." Sarah replied almost instantly. "We do, don't we? Heart." Months turned into years. Rise Tech kept growing. Emily opened a new office in Karachi, part business expansion, part quiet tribute to the roots she'd only recently begun to explore. She visited more often, bringing her mom along sometimes. Sarah saw the city where her own parents had once lived, tasted street food that made her eyes water with spice and memory. James and Lisa became regular visitors too. Holidays were shared. Thanksgiving at Sarah's house one year, Christmas in Seattle the next. The kids, Mia, Ethan, Lily, met their unexpected big sister. They teased Emily about being the famous one, but they hugged her like she'd always been there. And through it all, Sarah and James never crossed into anything more than deep, careful friendship. They didn't need to. What they had rebuilt was stronger than romance. Trust, respect, shared laughter over old wounds that had finally scarred over. One quiet evening, years later, Emily found her mom sitting alone in the garden, looking at the stars. "Penny for your thoughts?" Emily asked, settling beside her on the bench. Sarah smiled. "I was thinking, life doesn't always give you the ending you planned. Sometimes it gives you something better, messier, more real." Emily leaned her head on her mom's shoulder. "I used to think the story was about revenge, about making him pay. And now? Now I think the story was always about love, the kind that survives abandonment, the kind that forgives, the kind that shows up late, but shows up." Sarah kissed the top of Emily's head. "You're the best part of my story, baby girl. And you're mine." They sat like that for a long time, 2 women who had walked through fire and come out holding hands. The past didn't disappear. It just stopped hurting, and in its place grew something new, something beautiful. something whole. The end, for real this time.
The years slipped by like pages in a well-loved book. Some chapters quiet, some loud with joy, but all of them written together now. By the summer of 2032, Emily was 35. Rise Tech had become a household name, not just in Silicon Valley, but across continents. Offices in Karachi, Dubai, London, New York. She still flew too much, still answered emails at 3 a.m., but she had learned something her younger self never knew. Success without people to share it with is just noise. Sarah turned 60 that year. She celebrated quietly in her garden, string lights wrapped around the fence, a long wooden table borrowed from the neighbor, paper plates piled high with homemade biryani, a recipe she'd learned during one of her visits to Karachi with Emily, grilled kebabs, and the chocolate cake James insisted on bringing from Seattle. Everyone was there. James and Lisa arrived a day early, their now adult children in tow. Mia, 24 and already a rising star in AI ethics, hugged Sarah like she'd known her forever. Ethan and Lily, 21 and full of college energy, argued good-naturedly over who got to help Sarah light the birthday candles. They called her Auntie Sarah without hesitation, the way kids do when love has had time to settle in. Emily watched from the porch steps, barefoot, a glass of chilled mango lassi in her hand. She wore a simple cotton kurta her mother had picked out during their last trip to Pakistan, soft green, embroidered with tiny silver threads. It felt right. Sarah blew out the candles to cheers and a slightly off-key rendition of Happy Birthday. When the clapping died down, she looked around the table, at the faces that once belonged to separate worlds, and her eyes filled. "I never thought I'd see 60 like this," she said, voice steady but soft. "Surrounded by so much love, by family I didn't even know I could have." James reached over and squeezed her hand. No words needed. Lisa smiled across the table at Emily, a quiet thank you passing between them. After cake, the younger ones wandered off to play badminton in the backyard. The adults stayed at the table as the sky darkened and fireflies began to wink in the grass. Sarah turned to Emily. "You know what I'm most proud of?" Emily raised an eyebrow. "Besides surviving my terrible teenage years?" Sarah laughed. "Besides that, I'm proud that you chose healing over hurting. You could have kept the anger. You could have built walls so high nobody ever got close again. Instead, you opened doors. You let people in, even the ones who hurt us once." Emily looked down at her glass, swirling the last of the lassi. "I learned that from you, Mom. You never let the hurt make you hard. You stayed soft. That's what gave me permission to try." James cleared his throat. "I still wake up some mornings thinking about the day I walked out, wondering how different everything could have been if I'd stayed, if I'd fought the doubt instead of running from it." Sarah looked at him gently. "You can't rewrite yesterday, but you showed up for today. That matters more." Lisa leaned her head on James's shoulder. "And look what came of it, a bigger family than any of us planned." They sat in comfortable quiet for a while, listening to the laughter drifting from the yard, the distant hum of cicadas. Later, when everyone else had gone inside to wash dishes or scroll through phones, Emily and Sarah walked slowly around the garden. The jasmine was in full bloom, the scent wrapped around them like a hug. "Do you ever miss the old days? Just you and me against the world?" Sarah stopped under the string lights. "I miss parts of them. The way you'd crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the way we'd make forts out of blankets when the power went out. But I don't miss the fear, the loneliness, the wondering if we'd make it." She turned to face her daughter. "What we have now is richer, messier, but richer." Emily nodded. "I used to think my story started with abandonment. Now I think it started with you saying yes to me every single day, even when it was hard." Sarah pulled Emily into a long hug. "And it keeps going because you said yes to more love, to second chances, to all of us." They sat in that hug until the night air grew cooler. Inside, someone put on old music, Sarah's favorite 90s playlist. Laughter spilled out the open windows.
James was teaching Ethan how to dance the way he used to with Sarah back in college, awkwardly, hilariously. Lisa and Mia were showing Sarah travel photos from their last trip to Istanbul. Emily lingered on the porch a moment longer, looking in at the scene. A mother who had carried the weight of the world alone. A father who came back late but came back fully. A stepmother who welcomed strangers into her heart without resentment. Siblings who accepted an unexpected big sister with open arms. And her, once the girl who vowed revenge, now the woman who chose connection instead. She smiled to herself. The title of the story had been wrong all along. It wasn't "My husband abandoned me pregnant. Years later, my daughter became a CEO and confronted him, but then..." It was simpler. It was, we survived, we forgave, we grew, and love found its way back. Emily stepped inside, closing the screen door softly behind her. The music swelled. Someone called her name. She joined the circle. And the story, real, imperfect, beautiful, kept writing itself.